It's showtime. We are live Saturday night. Queen's birthday long weekend. Still got 2 days off work. Didn't even get particular. Well, what did I have last night? 3 Negronis, which is, not nothing. It's not the most alcoholic of cocktails. Neither is it the least. So it's like, a shot of gin in each of the Negronis. The, what do you call it? Vermouth part of it is relatively low alcohol. Not sure about the Okar. I'd have to check. This is sangria, actually. So good. The Mexican restaurant, I ordered some takeaway for date night with Mrs. Angry. They make a point of, saying thank you for supporting them because like any hospitality or food business, they're in tough times, and they threw in some sangria with the stuff we ordered last time, and it's really nice. What do you get when you put thousands of people on a BLM protest in the city during COVID-19? Well, it's obviously an increased risk factor if there is COVID-19 in the community. And the thing is, there doesn't seem to be much, if any. And in fact, an open air protest, while being considerably higher risk than sitting at home by yourself, is nowhere near as dangerous as I assume most of the people who went there went by public transport. The public transport trip there and back is actually the highest risk part of it. An open air rally where, from what I saw, the overwhelming majority of people were wearing masks, and they're actually, in many cases, doing a reasonable job of not being completely on top of each other. I wouldn't be that surprised if a few cases came out in the next couple of weeks that could be traced to the rallies. But given that available evidence is we have close to no COVID in the community, it's not actually that high risk. It's definitely higher risk than staying at home, but it's not like we're in America or the UK or any of the other hotspots. Now, the rallies in America, besides it being really bad for your health because psychopathic cops are violently assaulting people and firing munitions into their faces, also in terms of disease transmission, it's hugely high risk in the US. But there's the other question of, when your day-to-day life is at risk because of the behavior of cops, what do you do? And hello, Invisible Chicken. It's fantastically dark, this sangria, isn't it? I'm good over my face. You can see it's very dark. It's very sweet. I think there's a lot of sugar in this. I don't even know what they put in it. Sangria is traditionally, red wine and some fruit or fruit juices or whatever. That one's really rich and very sweet. I don't think there is a huge amount in the way of alcohol in this. Could be wrong, but I don't think so. If I were to guess, this is at most half the alcohol strength of a glass of wine. But that's guessing because I have no idea what they put in their sangria. Because I never make sangria. I'm just vaguely aware of it. What's in a classic sangria recipe? Is there a recipe from a site that I basically trust? Well, okay, let's try this. Taste.com. Oh God, it's fucking overwhelmed by Coles ads. Okay, so 4 oranges, 2 lemons, an apple. Jesus, just keeps loading ads. Ooh, ads for joining the police force. Now, this recipe has brandy as well as red wine. But there's, you end up with, some sort of soft drink or whatever. I reckon most recipes of sangria, this would only be half the alcohol strength of a glass of wine, really. A glass of sangria is probably, it depends. There's a Mexican restaurant, they could have been sneaky. They might have snuck tequila in it. Who knows? Invisible Chicken, love the non-alcoholic sangria from Montezuma's. Yeah, I mean, all sangria is like a fruit punch based on red wine. So you could there's non-alcoholic wines, so there are you can use just red grape juice, but there are fermented grape juices that don't have alcohol content but have that dry wine taste that a lot of people like. So yeah, dead easy to make a non-alcoholic sangria. Catherine. Yes, Catherine, I have reason to believe Taste has a partnership with Coles, namely because Coles ads were 90% of the visual fucking real estate on thing. And it was, buy the products from Coles. Here, shop at Coles to get the products for this. I was like, oh, fuck me. The site's so hard to read because of the number of ads on it. And hello, Net. How are you this fine evening? I gotta get the drink I made last night, which does look like beer. I've got to shake it up to get a head and put it in a glass. It would definitely look like I'm drinking a beer. It's a very amber colored drink after it finished the milk clarification process. I actually put it through twice to see if it went any lighter, and it didn't really. It's made it filtering it twice made it very clear, but it's a very orange color, as opposed to it was like murky brown before I did the milk clarification. Milk clarification cleans the drink up a lot, makes it much more photogenic. So, and actually, I really like the taste factor. I'm more than a little obsessed with the whole milk punch thing. I think, next time I'm involved in a party, which I almost never do, I am not very social, I'm going to make a big old punch because, they taste great. You just like put all your shit in and, put tea and fruit juices and herbs and spices in there, and it comes out great. That's good. Annette, I've saved you from the lamest British PI show ever made. Oh, God, there'd be a competition for that because there are some very good British TV shows about crime and PIs, but there's a lot of bad ones too. What was the name of the lame British PI show? God, because they churn them out. They absolutely churn them out. There's so many of them, and so many of them sort of disappear after a season, like they never get picked up. And a lot of there are other ones that are quite good that fly under the radar somewhat and even last for multiple seasons. But I think, no, I've seen that one advertised. It's a male and female protagonist, isn't it? Shakespeare and something. And let's see if I can find British detective show. Uh, Shakespeare and Hathaway. That's it. And it's the female protagonist whose name's Shakespeare, and the male protagonist's name is Hathaway, if I remember from the ad. Because Anne Hathaway married Shakespeare. Yes, Locust Trooper, waiting for the giant asteroid to pass judgment on 2020. Oh, those science types say, no, it's going to miss Earth by millions of kilometers. I say that's quitter talk. Just, with everything else that's going on. Oh, and that very cliched writing, cringy. Yeah, I often play a game with TV shows and movies. Can I predict the next line of dialogue? I'm really good at it. I watch a lot of TV and movies, and if it's a particularly cliched one, the setups are really obvious. And I'll just say to myself, and the next line is, and I get it quite a lot. Again, the more predictable the show, the easier it is to guess what the next dialogue it is. But even on some good shows that will do really obvious dialogue sometimes. So what's the plot, Annette, is an aging rocker who's supposedly convinced that the satanic contract his band signed back in the day has a demon chasing him. Okay. That's dumb. That immediately makes me think of there's an old series like 90s. I think there's quite a few seasons of it. The first ones are pre-widescreen, so they're square frame. That's how odd it is. It's called Jonathan Creek. It's like a mystery show. He's not a cop. I think he's actually a mystery writer, and he's called in to solve impossible to solve cases. Like they, defy reality, the things. And he works with a magician as well. So he's into, illusion and fakery, and that's what works. It's got, what's his name? He's the permanent panel member on QI, Alan Davies. And the basic thing of Jonathan Creek is, it seems kind of obvious how they devise the show. They come up with a scenario, a crime, and they create something that would have been impossible. Like, for this to have happened as this person says it happened would be impossible, and frequently implies some sort of supernatural activity. And otherwise it's impossible to understand. And then everything built around that is, how to solve it. They come up with the impossible conundrum. I'm quite sure they come up with the impossible conundrum, and then they go, okay, so we've got that. That's the thing. That's the thing that's going to be solved. This is how it's solved. Now we have to build an entire story around that. And it's usually pretty good, actually. Quite like Jonathan Creek. Annette, there's a New Zealand comedy movie with pretty much the same thing. Okay. Doesn't immediately ring a bell. There's been some pretty weird New Zealand comedies in the last 10 or 20 years, particularly with horror or sci-fi themes. I think Peter Jackson somewhat opened the gates on that with movies like Bad Taste. Deathgasm. Yes. Deathgasm was pretty funny. High school kids with a heavy metal band that find mystic writings that he's actually demon summoning. And so their heavy metal does actually raise the devil. Deathgasm is pretty funny. It's clear they don't let you out much, but you knew something was going on. Yes, there was a lot going on today. I didn't go out of respect to the members of my household, because way back when I first started the stream, Musical Aviator expressed that, well, it's the COVID-19 risk, and absolutely was. And it's kind of, I think it was a comparatively low risk, but out of respect to the other members of my household who don't want the additional exposure risk, I didn't go out. Hey, how's it going, Bunny? How you doing, man? I know your older girl went out today. I did see you posting about that, and I'm 100% on board with the protests and rallies, and boo to the scumfuck police trying to cause trouble. Ugh, just absolutely unnecessarily. They're fucking assholes. Like, Strip, you want me to make angry content here? Probably will. Just the world was so weird. I like, well, I was kind of hinting at this week, I'm probably going to cut back on the live streams and go back to doing a couple of pre-recorded videos a week. It's just, there's like so much happening and it's so fucked up. I'm really overwhelmed by it. Considering I'm a white cishet male in one of the safest societies on the planet, for me to say I'm overwhelmed is pretty lame. But I don't know. It was all a bit much. I mean, I actually have a much lesser ego than a lot of people assume I do. Because the big thing with me is thinking, I don't know that there's any reason for people to hear my opinion, which, when you get the fact that I've been making videos where I give my opinion for 14 years, you really think like that? Because you don't seem to worry about sharing your opinion at all. It's just, where my head is at. I'm having trouble thinking that I can contribute meaningfully, and I worry about cheapening and trivializing things, but I'll probably just get into making the videos again, and it will all feel normal. He's going when your friend said we need a police Nuremberg. We definitely need police to be held accountable for their excesses, and we don't have anywhere near the problem in Australia that they have in the US, but it's still fucking terrible in Australia. That's a good general rule, Aussie money. If you come into contact with tear gas, have a cold shower, wash your clothes in cold water. Hot water will reactivate the crystals. And here you see, somehow the idea, if you get like tear gas in your face, that milk was more effective than water at flushing out your eyes. But there's since been a lot of info like, no, it isn't. Wherever that came from, no, it's not. Water, clean, cold water, is the most effective substance for flushing your eyes out if you've got a face full of tear gas. So, yep, it's cold water. Oh, that's nice, Glee. You had 2 young Aboriginal women come check on you from the Aboriginal Advancement League. Yeah, same thing. Yeah. I can completely understand. They have solidarity with the rally, but they've got older relatives and they can't afford the exposure risk. I mean, God, that was one of the most damning things that happened in Australia. And I don't know, it didn't really get the attention it deserved. Like when health warnings were being passed out like earlier in the year, March and into April, about, don't do this, don't do that. If you're immunocompromised or you have a lung disorder, you're at higher risk. If you're over 70, you're at higher risk. Or if you're Indigenous and over 50, you're at higher risk. And that just laid bare how fucking bad health outcomes for Indigenous Australians are. It's just It's just fucking terrible. They're just like, oh yeah, we just know, the health outcomes for Indigenous Australians are so bad. Had to have a warning for much younger people. You need to be really careful because you'll be susceptible to it. It's just like, whew. And the fact that that's not a national disgrace, that's not a centerpiece of daily discourse, that we're failing Indigenous Australians so badly that their health outcomes are that much worse. It's just fuck. Oh, dude. When you're in the Aussie company, when you're in the army at gas mask training, you took your clothes, washed them in hot water in another unit's laundry. Gassed out their lines. God damn. That's. I don't know if that counts as passive aggression or just aggression. If that's direct aggression. Yes, Locust Trooper. I'm far less worried about property damage and looting than I am worried about psychotically violent cops who brutally attack absolutely non-violent demonstrators. And they do it again and again and again and again. That is an issue of 100 times more importance than property damage or looting. That's just a sideshow. When you see the cops just by default assaulting people, when there's no need to, when the people aren't aggressive, when the people aren't threatening, when the people aren't causing trouble, the cops fire tear gas, they fire rubber projectiles. That's when you keep hearing about rubber bullets, these big things, and the way they're meant to be fired is they're meant to be fired into the ground, so they sort of bounce up at people's legs or midsection, and the hitting the ground takes the velocity out of them and makes them less dangerous, because you're not meant to be hurting people with them. You're meant to be, driving people away. And yet we've seen again and again and again and again and again the cops in the US firing these projectiles into people's faces at point blank range, causing horrible injuries, like people losing eyes, multiple skull fractures. And the cops are doing it on purpose and unprovoked. Like, we have absolute definitive evidence of that again and again and again and again. It's just, in any talk of looting or property damage is fucking horseshit. That means nothing compared to the brutality of the cops. Again, Locust Trooper, any talk of bad elements who want to cause trouble in the riots, more than half the time those bad elements are cops, known as agent provocateurs, who are sent in deliberately to create a scenario that the police can say justified them using violence. Okay, the violence is the fucking cops' fault way over 90% of the time. Any talk of anything else being an issue apart from this psychotic police brutality is utter horseshit. I have no time for it. Say, oh no, someone looted a Target. I don't fucking care. I care about all of these cops, and it's fucking all of them, okay? They're either directly doing it or they 100% support the fucking psychopaths who are doing it, okay? It is all the cops. All the cops are at fault, okay? They're fucking psychopaths. Oh, Annette, the rubber bullets been around for ages. There's no excuse for not knowing how to use. They know what they are meant to do. They are deliberately firing them into people's faces at point blank range. They're firing tear gas canisters at people's faces. They're firing flashbangs at people's faces. And they're doing it again and again and again and again. And I'm just going to emphasize this once more, Locust Trooper. Any talk at all about, oh, there's the people trying to cause trouble, there's looters, that's fucking horseshit. It's meaningless. It is absolutely meaningless, okay? The real issue is the police force from top to bottom being psychotic violence against peaceful demonstrators exercising their rights. Anything else is a sideshow. Holding it up is nothing. And it's not some cops, it is fucking all of them. It is every fucking one of them, okay? You saw that one, those guys who were this skinny old man tried to say to them, why are you guys doing that? And they just shoved him down and he cracked his head open on the ground and they just walked over his fucking body. And then when two of them were disciplined for that, the entire squad says, oh no, we're not going back. And it's just like, no, every single fucking cop is a fucking piece of shit, okay? The ones, if anyone is a cop in America and isn't a piece of shit, they need to take their fucking badge off, okay? They need to refuse to do these actions, okay? Any cop who goes to these peaceful demonstrations in riot gear and starts firing projectiles at people who are non-violent is an absolute piece of shit. Any cop who shows up is a piece of fucking shit, okay? Look, I literally have no time for any, but. Fuck that. That is inconsequential. It is meaningless. It is absolutely meaningless. And there is one problem, and the problem is police brutality, okay? It's the police constantly getting away with murdering people. It's the police constantly getting away with violently assaulting people who are doing nothing wrong, okay? It's the police just saying they're a law unto themselves and never facing any repercussions at all. That's the problem. That's the whole problem. That's everything that's wrong, okay? Don't waste time saying, oh, some people went to the protest to cause trouble. Fuck off. That's meaningless, okay? Every fucking cop out there is a fucking psychopath. Do you get I have a strong feeling about this? Because I fucking do. No, Locust Trooper, that's bullshit. That is absolute rat fuck bullshit. You know who's the assholes hurting people out? The right-wing militia types. The ones who are driving cars into people, driving trucks into people. No, your head's up your ass on this, okay? There is just no grey on this for me. Saying anything at all about, oh, but there was troublemakers in the crowd. The cops are fucking murderers. The cops are violent psychopaths. The cops enjoy assaulting peaceful people. The cops have got a fucking woody the whole time they are launching these attacks on peaceful people. The cops are fucking psychopaths. Every fucking one of them, okay? If they weren't, they'd hand their badge in. It's fucking that simple, okay? The solidarity with the actual murderers and violent psychopaths, the ones who are complicit with that are just about losing shit over nothing. They're murderers. They're brutally assaulting people day in, day out. It's not nothing. It's one of the single biggest problems in the US, out of control police violence, okay? Literally murdering people day in, day out. And when they're not murdering people, violently assaulting them. So, and with impunity. It's like, it's taken for granted the cops are never held accountable. So I have no fucking time for anything about, oh, but there were some bad people at the protest. It's fucking worthless and meaningless horseshit. You know, I just don't feel like doing the soft shoe on that, okay? When the cops stop murdering people, when the cops stop violently assaulting peaceful protesters, when the cops stop just fucking enjoying assaulting people who are doing nothing wrong, then you can say, hey, you know, that person in the protest, they were bad. And then I will agree with you. But until you fix the actual problem, I have no fucking interest in any both sidesing of this, because it's fucking horseshit. Well, there's something to that, Musical Aviator. He's saying there's evidence that pedophiles get attracted to jobs where they get access to kids, and violent dickheads are attracted to things where they can exert authority on people. Look, you think the Australian cops want tanks? The American cops have tanks. It's absolutely surreal since 9/11 in particular, when they spend up so big on military spending, then all the surplus stuff was sold to police forces. And do you think they're not going to use it? Do you think they're not going to use it? I mean, yeah, they're cosplaying, but you give them military weapons and they're going to use them. None of them are trained. None of them are trained in military tactics or crowd control in any meaningful way. They're not trained in de-escalation. They're just trained in hitting and shooting people. That's all they're trained. And the training in that is really fucking bad too. Yeah, Invisible Chickens Bay. What about the police officer who put his knee on the guy's neck after what happened and people yelled at him and the partner intervened? I've seen 6 cases of that. I've seen 6 different videos of cops choking out people at the protests, and they're just fucking psychopaths. They are fucking psychopaths. Given the context that they would do this, and again, we're seeing all this because they're doing it in the open. And this is when people have said for years that minorities were exaggerating about the degree to which cops brutalize them, the degree to which cops lie, the degree to which cops frame them. People saying, oh, you're exaggerating, you must have done something wrong. And we're just seeing it in the open again and again and again and again and again. While these cops are under more scrutiny than they've ever been, they're just violently assaulting people for no reason. They're attacking TV crews. They are, and not a little bit, not shove, go back, just wildly beating up TV crews, okay? They enjoy it. They know they're being seen doing it. They don't care. They've got a fucking woody the entire time they're doing this. They're just the fucking worst. All right. Don't know if that sangria got me fired up, or that's just the way I am. Hey, I'm going to bring out the drink I made last night and shake it so it looks like I'm drinking a beer. Locust Trooper, have I had trouble with cops? I'm a white guy. I've had to interact with cops, and I'll be completely honest, I suck up. If I'm in a thing where I'm possibly in a bad situation with a cop, I suck up. And I get away with it. I got away with accidentally giving a cop, well, I deliberately gave the finger, but I didn't know the person I did it to was a cop. And that's because I'm a white guy. Yeah, I will unashamedly say when I've been in interactions with the cops where it could be bad, I suck up. I absolutely do, because I know the tiniest thing will make a cop. I didn't hit a cop. I gave him the finger. It was in traffic, and someone was beeping at me to turn. Well, I was turning right, and they thought I was blocking their lane, and I just stuck my finger out there, and it was a cop. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I just thought, who's this dickhead beeping at me? And I just stuck my finger out the window and said, "Get fucked." I definitely have not and would not hit a cop. Aussie Gun Bunny, oh, you're going to have to illuminate me, guy. Try and avoid the Pauls. Logan Paul said recent comments on Black Lives Matter. At a wild guess, did he say something fucked? because yes, like a trooper, I do protests, but I'm not very hardcore because I know what cops do. The whole thing, cops make your life as unpleasant as possible at protests because they're trying to discourage you from doing it again. I always get somewhat of a giggle when people who go to a protest and they get dragged off by the cops, and the cops fuck with them. They leave them in the back of a paddy wagon for hours, or they get the person's home address, and then take them out and process them at a station that is the furthest station away from where they live, just to fuck with them. They keep them there for hours and hours and hours till it's really late, and it's going to be very difficult to get home, and they're at completely the wrong end of town. Cops do that just to fuck with you because they can, and they're trying to make your experience as unpleasant as possible because they don't want you to do it again. Oh, surprise me. Not blow me down with a feather, Aussie Gun Bunny. Paul actually said something really grown up and mature. Maybe he's been listening to people. I missed him completely. Oh gosh, yeah, Invisible Chicken. Yeah, you did send me that link. Amber Ruffin talking about her experience with cops. She she's a black woman, writer on Seth Meyers' Late Night, and has just had absolutely terrible things. I saw this video. A black couple being pulled over, and the black guy, he's just had enough. Like, this cop's saying, like, I'm arresting you, and he's going, for what? For what? And he's not cooperating with the cop. Like, the cop's trying to cuff him, and he won't put his hands on the car, and he won't let the cop turn. And the cop pulls a gun on him, and his wife's saying, don't stop moving, don't move, don't give him. He's drawn his gun, and this guy, he's staring death in the face, and he's just fucking had enough. And I was like, oh, dude. And it's like, I don't know your life, man, and I can't imagine it, but to just fucking stare death down like that, I was freaked out. Oh, was it good, man? You send me the link to Logan Paul actually being reasonable. And hey, Addy, how you doing? And that's what I mean, Addy. You're saying it's terrifying. Cops still think it's okay. Like, with what's happening now, just because this guy says, why, you're saying you're going to arrest me? Why? What act have I committed that justifies you arresting me? And the cop pulls a gun on him while he's being videoed, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, how many people have just been murdered by cops, and it was just swept under the carpet? That's Jesus. Oh, that is an interesting thought, Annette. Compare it to Syrian protests. What do you think of the similarities and differences? Eddie woke up with a head fold, sporting the process for home. Yes, as I said earlier, it's kind of like out of respect to everyone else in my household who doesn't want to have increased risk of COVID exposure. I stayed home. Right, but I'm going to get a drink. The one I made last night. Yeah. I'm going to shake this so it looks like a bit. So, who remembers that? It's like basically a rum drink I made last night. It was a really murky brown. Now it's gone. It's dark orange amber, very beer colored. So if I shake it, it'll get ahead. So it'll really look like a beer. Luke, is there an asteroid coming close to Earth? Well, it's supposed to miss Earth by many millions of kilometers. But I say that's quitter talk. Oh, so if you have the video I was talking about, it happened in the last day or two, the video I was talking about. with it was like a highway patrol cop pulled a guy over, said he was speeding or whatever, and it kind of escalated. Right, so if I shake this, because of the whey that's in the drink as a product of the milk clarification, it will make it foamy. So it will really look like I'm drinking a beer. Break the seal. Oh, it's less foamy than I thought it would be. But, see? Now it looks like I'm drinking a beer. That is, maybe I should, no, I can't be bothered. But I could shake it some more. Can't be bothered. I'll just let it settle. Yes, Addy, the concept of good cops is fine, but you find the majority of cops that people try to say are good cops take no action against the bad cops, which I think it makes them just as bad. And second, the small number of cops, again, you'll see this around the world, the small number of cops who try to speak out about corruption and brutality get their lives and careers ruined. So I'm not sure. I think now it doesn't look like beer. Now it looks like orange juice. But whew, that's a nice bevy. Oh, see, because it's got a good cinnamon flavor in this. I put cinnamon in this. It's probably the dominant flavor, actually. It's got rum and fruit juices, orange juice and lime juice, and cinnamon. Cinnamon's probably the dominant flavor in here, actually. Like it's true, but I watch cop movies as much as anyone, and find them quite entertaining. But it's entertainment; it's not real life. Sava, that is a good point. They'd be much more likely to go to the protest if there wasn't a pandemic happening as well. Other people are more dedicated than me. Strictly Sega, hello, good evening to you. So your sister wanted to go to the protest, but you said don't bring COVID to your hometown. Yeah, look, the chances of transmission at these rallies is actually very, very low because there's hardly any, if any, COVID in the community. As I said earlier, the public transport trip is higher risk than the rally itself. It's absolutely possible, and I wouldn't be surprised if a few cases come out of it. It's not very likely that it will be a lot of cases come out of it. Oh, yes, I do remember that one at Addy. Copy tried to call out sexual abuse of kids from the Catholic Church in Victoria, and he basically was forced out of the police force. But that's happened again and again. And cops who speak out against corruption, abuse of power, and just racism and general fuckery in the police force. As a general rule, they get their lives ruined. So I'm not really on board with the good cop argument because there's just too much evidence of the other going unpunished, and the supposed good cops closing ranks and protecting the exceptionally bad cops. Strictly saying, I'm not sure what you're asking. How long do I think it'll be before right-wingers start bringing mass shooting to protests? You mean how long do I think it will be before actual live fire exchanges happen? I hope it never happens, but I'm really worried it will. Hey, Neg, how are you doing? You're shocked at the idea of the police being terrible. I know, it's shocking and unprecedented. I'm not sure what story that is, Safra. A boy in Kendall, a lost boy getting sued. That sounds weird. Oh, now you're asking the big questions, musical aviator. How would I propose to fix Australia's police problems? I wouldn't. There are many people who specialize in justice reform and have years of experience in the field and have put proposals forward and have theories. And I would just be talking out my ass if I started saying, well, we should do this and this and this. What we should do is talk to people, and cops should be involved in the conversation too, but they shouldn't be the arbiters of the conversation. You get the people who've been trying to do criminal justice reform for years, and the people who are experienced in the system and know where the problems are, and they can point to what the problems are and say, this is what we should do. Locust Trip, you're saying 10 dead. It's got that's been drowned out in the news. Let's see if I can find it in the news. Seven shot in Louisville, Kentucky. 7 found dead inside burning house in Alabama. Jesus. Multiple officers shot during overnight protests in St. Louis and Las Vegas. So something happened in Louisville, Kentucky. So Louisville police said at least 7 shooting victims, but the police said they did not fire any shots. It sounds like there is not a lot of in-depth knowledge there. It doesn't seem to be a thing of 10 people getting killed in the US. Jeez, where 7 people found dead in Alabama? Oh, it sounds like a domestic family homicide, which is always unpleasant. Well, you know, any mass killing's unpleasant. Oh, God, suffer, your sister's a cop. Don't want to find out if she's a good cop or bad cop. We'll have faith that she's doing her best in a difficult situation. So if you reckon the US is having worse problems than the collapse of the USSR, hell, maybe. I'd have to refresh my memory on what happened in the USSR. This is really good. Like I said, it's very cinnamony. I might chuck a bit of ice in and maybe even top it with lemonade. Make a nice punchy drink. Why did I leave my glass over there? Oh, why don't I just use that bit of ice, actually? I've got a bit of ice here. I might top it with some lemonade. This would be a very good... I'm just experimenting with these. I'm going to make punches for summer. Like a stripper, will everyone on Earth be happy? No. Because everyone has different definitions of happiness and what they want. And so there'll always be differences and clashes. It's just the nature of people. Okay, now I need a long spoon so I can stir this. So, Eddie, you got cops in your family. Yeah, it's very. Look, an ex of mine, way back when I was in my 20s, her sister was a cop in Sydney, and I liked her sister as a person, but when the cops murdered people, and doesn't happen anywhere near as much in Australia as it does in America, but like, for instance, there was a notorious case when I was living in Redfern, a guy called David Gundy shot in his bed by the cops because they were after another guy who'd shot a cop, apparently. And their information was wrong, and they burst into this guy's house in a pre-dawn raid and charged into his bedroom and shoved a shotgun in his face, and he grabbed the barrel of the gun this guy was acting, which I fucking wouldn't have done, and the cop shot him. And the cops just tried to make it his fault. Like, you know, their information was totally wrong. And they shot this guy in his own bed. And there's a bit of an uproar about it. And yeah, but my girlfriend's sister was 100%. The cops were 100% right. And, you know, it's this guy's own fault. And if my girlfriend sort of parroted her line and said, like, oh, yeah, you're saying he's innocent, and, you know, the guy wasn't there, but, you know, you just ask the cops, he ran out the back door as the cops burst in the front door. And I said, that's your story, is it? Yeah, you know, okay. So the cops have been chasing this guy who they say is very dangerous, and sounds like he was because he shot a cop. And they've got the residence where they're convinced this guy is staying, and this very dangerous guy, and all the heavily armed tactical cops burst in, but no one watched the back door. Is that how you're saying cops do tactical raids? They only come in the front door and no one covers the back door? And there was this slight pause as it sank in how fucking stupid that statement was. And yeah, so fuck it. Even the good cops take the side of the bad cops. It's this thing like, you know, an absolute sort of wall of silence. It's just fucked. Yeah, invisible chicken. The scary thing is, I don't know which case you're talking about, because that happened a couple of times. A cop walked into the wrong house and shot a guy for being there, but the guy was in his own home. Was that female cop? And I think she must have been drunk or something, and she broke into an apartment and shot the guy who was in there, but it was the guy's apartment. Like, the reason this drunk cop's key didn't work in the front door is it wasn't her apartment. So she broke in and then shot the black guy who was in his own apartment. Okay, I am going to address that locust trooper saying about, oh, well, people just get away with murder. No, when I say cops are fucked, I am not saying there should be no facility for law enforcement and investigation of crimes, but cops don't stop murders. Again, particularly, they always say to women, like, oh, you say there shouldn't be cops, or get rid of the cops. What if someone rapes you? Cops not only don't stop rapes, the overwhelming majority of cops make the life miserable for the overwhelming majority of rape victims, okay? That whole thing about, oh, people will just commit crimes is fucking horseshit. Cops don't stop crimes. There should be a facility for investigation of crime. Okay? That's a thing that should happen. But the structure of the overwhelming majority of police forces in the world is just wrong. For instance, I think it's a completely reasonable position to take that cops shouldn't be armed, because what you have is the problem of as to the man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. To the cop with a gun, every situation becomes a situation where they should pull their gun. And I think it's also a completely reasonable position to say cops shouldn't take to the streets in fucking riot gear and violently assault peaceful protesters. Yeah, look, the way that cops are always killing people who are having mental health episodes, it's just like, no, armed cops should not be involved in situations like that. So the idea that, we need the cops to stop crime. Cops do not stop crimes. They just don't. We need an enforcement facility, something that a group that investigates crime, like detectives, etc. But the structure of the overwhelming majority of police forces in the world is just fucking wrong. And their training is just fucking wrong. And the worst of the worst is, without a doubt, the US. That's just a nightmare what happens there. But yes, Safa, cops in Victoria have tasers. They have a number of non-lethal options, and yet there's far too many cases of them killing people who are having mental health episodes. I mean, there was one a couple of years ago when a guy started cutting himself, like he was having a really bad mental health episode, and the cops were called, and he's in the driveway of his house, and he had a knife, and cops all drew their guns, and he started cutting himself, and cops shot him dead, and their explanation was they were worried he was hurting himself, and so they shot him dead, and there was like no negative outcome for those cops. It's just like, in what fucking world does that make sense? It's just, and at least in Australia, there's a relatively isolated incidents. The number of cases that happen every week in the US of the cops kicking in the wrong door, shoving guns in people's faces when those people are completely non-violent, shooting people in the back, shooting people in their own beds. It's an absolute fucking nightmare. So yes, that drunk lady cop did get arrested. I don't remember the outcome. That was a particularly egregious case. Like, what she did was so obviously criminal. But I'm honestly not sure what happened, what the end result in that case was. But it was so bad, like breaking into someone else's apartment when you're drunk and then killing them. It's just like, what the fuck? So, yeah, that's the God. Okay, the oven's doing the horrible buzzing thing it does, and it's annoying me. I'm just gonna shut it off. Very weird glitch on that oven that I haven't been able to fix. Yes, I very agree. I definitely wouldn't want to live in the US. Just random shit happens everywhere. Could be killed in a car accident. So many, random things could happen. But the US just having this really quite reasonable concern that at any given moment you could be killed in random violence. No, that is not a way I want to live. There's something just deeply fucking wrong with that. And I'm going to see if I can find this case. How good is my Google foo? Here we go. Amber Gaia, ex-Dallas officer who killed a man in his own apartment, is found guilty of murder. Okay, so that was the trial last year. Dallas jury found former police officer Amber Gaia guilty of murder. Took the jury 5 hours to decide she committed murder rather than a lesser charge of manslaughter. Sentencing, she faces a possible punishment of 5 to 99 years in prison. She's the first Dallas police officer to be convicted of murder since the 1970s. She's like, prosecutors maintained Gaia, who is white, committed murder when she overlooked signs the apartment she entered wasn't hers. The wrong floor, smell of marijuana coming from the apartment, the bright red doormat, and shot Jean, a 26-year-old black accountant who was sitting in his living room eating ice cream when Gaia killed him. Oh my God. It's just, sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but she's saying, oh no, I made a mistake. I was scared. I saw a silhouette. He's going to kill me. No police officer would want to hurt an innocent person. Well, that's a fucking lie. I mean, Jesus. Ugh. Yeah, she claimed she ordered him, let me see your hands, but no one in the apartment complex heard her without instructions. Within seconds of opening the door, she fired 2 shots and killed him. Ugh. So, I wonder if she's been sentenced yet. Igar. Sentence. She got a sentence of 10 years in prison. Wonder when her first release date will be. Oh dear. So she got 10 years, but what's the non-parole period? That's the big one. But yes, so there you go. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Strictly saying, Jake Paul could be serving 6 months in prison. Is that because he videoed him and his friends doing vandalism. I saw a bit of that, and I didn't really know any of the detail. So I was in Gun Bunny sent me a video about Logan Paul where he apparently says something insightful. But yes, no, I think I saw a thing with Jake Paul and his idiot friends videoing themselves vandalizing shit. Those dickheads are just... And it's not entirely their fault, because people trying to make money out of them set them up in a particular way. But those dickheads are absolutely disconnected from reality. They don't think rules apply to them. They have no understanding of consequences. They're just colossal idiots. Like I said, it is ultimately their fault. They're the ones making the decisions to indulge in this fuckhead behavior. But there's a lot of people who are complicit in the bad behavior of people like the Paul brothers, because there's these people who are trying to make money out of them, who set them up with all this luxury trappings in their lifestyle, and they're just encouraged to think the rules don't apply to them, and that turns them into sociopaths. So not good at all. So yeah, but that was particularly stupid. Videoing yourself committing crimes. Okay, you're smart. You were so smart. It's smarty. Oh dear. Yes. Again, yeah, look, the Suicide Forest video. But again, so, well, that's both of them, strictly saying. There's Jake Paul and Logan Paul. They both do things that make it clear they think rules don't apply to them. Because the thing Logan Paul did in the Suicide Forest was categorically illegal. It was very clearly and explicitly illegal. And again, it's like, Logan Paul is not like me. He's just not a lone person uploading videos to YouTube. Multiple people were aware of the content of that video before it went live. And somebody should have taken the responsibility to say, you can't do this, dude. You can't do this. Like, it's absolutely vile and immoral. And on top of that, it's illegal, you fucking dickhead. Locust Trooper, I never did anything remotely as vile and disgusting as the Paul brothers, okay? I can say that with immense confidence. Don't say to me, oh, you were young once. I was never a cunt. And they are cunts, okay? They are privileged, spoiled, sociopathic cunts. And I never did anything remotely approaching the vile shit that they do. Just sociopathically self-centered fuckery. I never did anything remotely like that. I'm actually quite forgiving of younger people who do stupid things. If I think it's like, it's a mistake and they're young and stupid and they can maybe learn from this, because they definitely don't have consequential thinking developed at that age. But these two, it's just like, it's again and again and again. They've just, for years, they've been complete fucking assholes. And like I said, it's not completely their fault. Ultimately, it's their responsibility. They're the ones who choose to do the ridiculous fucking things they do. But there are a whole bunch of people around them who are enablers and encouragers, because there's a whole bunch of people around them who benefit from what they do. So, because there's not, well, when I say it's not entirely their fault, I guess it's more accurate that my feelings on it are they are not the only ones that are complicit, because they absolutely bear the ultimate responsibility for their own actions. And that's the whole thing. Like, if someone has a very hard life and have lots of things go wrong, and they're like backed into a corner, and then they end up committing a really heinous crime, it's still their responsibility for committing the heinous crime. Because for every person with a very bad life who commits a heinous crime, there's 100 people with a life that's as bad or worse who don't commit the heinous crime. But it's important, I think, to acknowledge the environment that contributed, because usually other people are complicit in that environment. But yeah, I don't want to oversimplify it, but yeah, ultimately you're responsible for your own actions. But for some people, the choice is much more difficult than for others. And for the Paul brothers, every time they act like cunts, it's because they choose to. They have a level of privilege that's unimaginable for over 99% of the population. And they still choose to be pieces of shit. Yep, not saying I want Jake Paul to go to prison for his stupid fuckery with vandalizing and stealing stuff. Not going to cry many tears if he actually pays a price for it. How did Martin Bryant get into the conversation? The guy who did the mass shooting in Tasmania. Yeah, he's a bit shit. There's a mysterious hooded figure sneaking into the kitchen. This is what happens when you do your live streams from the kitchen. Occasionally, people want things that are in the kitchen. So, I guess what you're saying is Martin Bryant had a lot of difficulties in his life, but yeah, no, he's a piece of shit. He's just fucked. Yeah, no, it's the murderers, especially mass murderers, not a fan. That's my radical, dangerous, hot take. Mass killers, not great people. So, I know, controversial take of mine that mass killers are bad people, but sometimes I will take these controversial stances no matter what damage it calls to me. And on this question of mass killings, I am adamant. They're bad. The people who do them are bad. So, might lose me some fans. There you go. Annette, I believe you are correct that I'm not sure if Martin Bryant was intellectually disabled, but he certainly had mental health problems. And he just walked back in on that bit of the conversation. Me and my hot take, mass killing is bad. Mass killers are bad. See, that's why you come here, for the controversial takes. No fear nor favor. I will take the unpopular position of speaking out against mass killers. The ice just made drink splash up, and I've got little droplets on my glasses, so everything's getting a bit foggy. Aussie Gone Bunny, you want to interested in my reaction to the video? Yeah, I can't watch it now. I'd share it on the stream, except I'd get a fucking copyright strike from YouTube, so I won't. Oh, yeah, look, I don't think there was any question that Martin Bryant knew what he was doing was wrong and the most disgusting, evil thing he could do. So, yeah, I almost think his intellectual disability was a side issue. As like I said, it's part of the thing of, he had difficulties in life and had a hard life, but nothing comes anywhere near justifying what he did. The intellectual disability is not an excuse for what he did. And in fact, I don't think it's altogether relevant. But he's just a piece of shit. So, I might make another. There's cinnamon in that. Was real. I don't often have cinnamon in drinks. The cinnamon in that was really good. Wasn't too much, because then like if you have too much cinnamon, it's actually a little bit hot. Getting a little bit of the spiciness from cinnamon, but it's just good. Yeah. Oh, I should get a drink. A drink. Maybe our good friends at the Difford's Guide. What's the? Oh no, the drink, because it's the D-Day anniversary today. Actually, that's a pretty big day. The Normandy landing. This day in 1944. So that is 76 years ago. Oh, God. That's like the Normandy landing was just fucking horrific. The Saving Private Ryan was good at showing how horrifying the Normandy landing was. But if you want an even better exploration of just the level of sacrifice that was involved from the Normandy landing through to the end of the war, Band of Brothers follows Easy Company in the US Army. It's obviously very US centric, but Easy Company did play a very important role. But just Band of Brothers really brings home the level of sacrifice war expects from the people who are involved. And if anyone's interested in a real psychologist analyzing mass murderers, oh my God, go see Dr. Grand's videos. Okay, that's pretty weird. He has the driest humor of anyone on the internet, which is a hell of an achievement for America. Oh God, you'll have to, like, Annette, if you remember, send me a link on the socials. That actually sounds really interesting. And Safi, you are right. The US didn't want to get into the European wars, but was more or less dragged in late in the game. But yeah, while Band of Brothers is very US centric, it's just a good illustration. Like, you take it as a general rule, the level of sacrifice the people involved in war go through, because it isn't just soldiers, it's medical staff, it's civilians. The level of sacrifice and suffering that people go through in a war, Band of Brothers is actually quite good at communicating. Luke, what's the specs of my laptop? God, I don't know. I'm like the worst nerd. I never remember the specs of any of my machines. System information. Let me have a look. It's HP processor. Intel i7 core. 1.8 gigahertz processor. Is that what you wanted to know? I don't know. Got 8 gigabytes of RAM. Is that what you wanted to know? An i7 with 8 gigabytes of RAM? Oh, how's it going, Bunny? It's very hard to share links through the live stream. Oh, yes. So for Russian history is not very reliable. So Russian history, say World War II started in 1941, and they don't want to talk about the Polish occupation and the deal the Soviets cut with the Nazis. Yeah, yeah. There was a lot of fuckery from Stalin until he was forced to go up against Hitler. If he could have just if Hitler could have settled for letting the Soviets control half of Europe and the Nazis control the other half, that's how it would have ended up. But Hitler had bigger ideas and wanted all of Europe, and he underestimated the Soviets. So despite their fuckery earlier in the game, the Soviets sacrificed an enormous amount to defeat the Nazis. They were absolutely crucial in the defeating of the Nazis. Yes, is it not to understate the level of fuckery they had beforehand. So who's sent me links? Aussie Gun Barney sent me a link to Logan Paul's Black Lives Matters, as he was shocked to agree with controversial YouTuber. He's 25. Okay. So listen closely. One of my biggest learnings from all of this, and I'm embarrassed it's taken me 25 years to realize it, it's not enough to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist. Condemn those who feign superiority because of the color of the skin. Hold friends accountable. Hold your family accountable. Hold yourself accountable. Most importantly, we must hold our authorities accountable. Police officers, politicians, policymakers. As Killer Mike said, bully the politicians at the voting booth. Make your voice heard, attend a protest, speak up against injustice. If you're white, you look like me, use your privilege. And for those who don't think white privilege exists, you're fucking blind. You're delusional and you're part of the problem. That is surprisingly insightful for Logan Paul. Most definitely. That's a surprising level of insight. Oh, Annette, you sent me the Dr. Grand link too. I see that. Yes. Locust Trooper, it is fair to say both the USSR and the Nazis were authoritarians with rather expansionist views. And Hitler just made a really dumb mistake when he went back on the deal he made with Stalin. Because the Nazis would have won World War II and controlled half of Europe if they let the Soviets control the other half. And America would have negotiated an armistice. And I don't think they would have been occupied by the Nazis, but they would have had to have a political agreement with the Nazis. So we are super fucking lucky that Hitler overreached. Because if Hitler had contained his ambitions a little, he probably would have won, which would have been... And also, yeah, and then the Soviets would have controlled half of Europe, which also would have been bad. That would have been like the worst of all possible worlds. And we're lucky we missed that. Hitler overreached, tried to fuck the Soviets, so Stalin didn't have a choice but to go to war against Germany. So... yeah, we're lucky that Hitler actually made really bad decisions. And talking about, yeah, again, at the start of the war, Stalin was pulling Stalin shit and, you know, fucking over people, occupying Poland, all of that. But by the end of the war, like out of every 3 dead, 1 was Russian or from the USSR. And a disturbing number of those were civilian, like the millions who died in the siege of Stalingrad. You know, and again, like some people, particularly right wingers today, like to bring up cases of how the Soviet soldiers, as they stormed into Germany and into Berlin, committed a huge number of atrocities. Because they did, and that was wrong and unforgivable. But there was also the aspect of what they'd been through in the preceding years at the hands of the Nazis and what they'd seen the Nazis do. It was still absolutely unconscionable that they took that out on civilians, and they did commit atrocities. They committed a fuck ton of atrocities. But yeah, the right wingers who bring that up tend to have a very one-dimensional view of things. Yeah, actually, Annette, you're right. The fact that Adolf was really severely abusing the amphetamines affected his judgment as well. Yeah, well, Safi, you are right. The Russian Empire did control half of Europe, but if like the non-aggression pact between the Nazis and the Soviets had held, we literally, and they would have taken, the Nazis would have taken England. We literally would have had half of Europe under a totalitarian Nazi regime and half of Europe under a totalitarian communist regime, and no one having any freedom at all in Europe. And in all of Europe, there would have been no one spared. Everyone would have been either under fascist or communist rule. And when you're under the heel of a totalitarian oppressor, it doesn't matter what the label is. It doesn't matter whether they call themselves communist or they call themselves fascist or they call themselves Nazi. What they call themselves doesn't matter. For you, all it is a totalitarian oppressor. And all of Europe would have been under that. Yeah, there are some very bad alternate realities out there where those things happened. I think America could have negotiated independence just because they're so far away, but they would have had to meant it with a non-aggression pact, and said, yeah, we'll just go. Yeah, Annette, I still have to watch The Man in the High Castle, which, if I understand, was originally a book. Is the idea of the Nazis won World War II and they occupied the US. So the US is a Nazi satellite. I don't think that would have happened if the US signed an armistice with the Nazis and just said, hey, how about, we actually are like a satellite and things. Yeah, Locust Trooper, it's a good bet to say there would be no minorities, ethnic minorities, no Jewish people, no black people, in basically anywhere in Europe, because the Soviets were into the extermination as much as the Nazis were. So, oh, okay, and The Man in the High Castle, Japan got the West. See, Japan would be more likely to want territory in the US because they're geographically closer. The Japanese got California. Jesus. Okay, I have to watch it at some point because it's on Prime, and I have Prime. What did I watch on Prime today? I watched Zombieland Double Tap, the many years later sequel to Zombieland, which was fun and silly and made no sense. It was like the ultimate popcorn movie because you really didn't want to engage your brain at all while watching Zombieland because none of it made any sense. But if you just take it, this is just silly and fun and fluffy. It is mildly entertaining. It's not a great film. It's not going to go down in history as a great film. The original was better, as is usually the case with films that have sequels. But it wasn't terrible. I didn't hate it. It was just, kind of inconsequential. Locust Troop wasn't the Japanese. The Japanese are racist. The Japanese, the right wing in Japan want to deny the war crimes of World War II. The Japanese, when they invaded China, got into large-scale massacres. They would be very much into genociding if they got half a chance. They were not nice. The Japanese Imperial Army, not nice. And the right-wingers who are still aficionados of the Japanese Empire today, not nice, not good people. Yes, Safa, Zombieland, Jesse Eisenberg's in it with Woody Harrelson and Emma Stone. And yes, all authoritarians are racist, basically, because that's how authoritarians usually rise to power, by declaring an other. You know, we are the pure, they are the other. We need to stamp them down. So don't forget about Korea. A lot of it is like Korea hates Japan and Japan hates Korea. And if you want to start a fight in Korea, you say that the Korean language was derived from the Japanese language. And if you want to start a fight in Japan, you say the Japanese language was derived from the Korean language. Because I think the answer is no one really knows, but you get in a big fucking fight if you in Korea, if you say Japan's better, and in Japan, if you say Korea's better, big fucking fight. So I think, and then you do want to forget about Korea. Korea's nice. South Korea's nice. North Korea's sad. I'll say South Korea's nice. There's obviously, from what I've read, there's things about South Korea I don't like, but you know, I don't have any particular antipathy to South Korea. And yeah, although what I said about the Japanese right wingers, the racist as fuck, I don't have any particular antipathy to Japan either. I mean, I try not to have antipathy to countries because they're not an amorphous blob. They're different people. It's with people who profess certain things, I'll have antipathy to them. I think, what does Difford say I should do for D-Day? Oh, okay, a drink with Calvados in it, which is a Normandy. It's an apple brandy, popular, a French apple brandy, popular in Normandy. I don't actually have any Calvados. I have the American equivalent, which is called Applejack. And because I read up on all this shit, I don't just drink these things. I read up on it. The French apple brandy Calvados tends to be made with apples that are more tart, so it's a drier brandy, and the American Applejack tends to be made with sweeter apples, so it's a sweeter brandy than the French Calvados. But I could, and look at these dumb fucking measurements they have in this: 5/6 of a shot of Calvados, 2/5 of a shot of Benedictine, 2/5 of a shot of yellow chartreuse. If I was making this, I'd just say, no, it's going to be 1 shot of the brandy, 1/2 a shot of the Benedictine, 1/2 a shot of the yellow chartreuse, because those are really fucking dumb measurements and they piss me off. See, I changed my topic now, things that piss me off, dumb measurements. Do you think the Chinese think it's shameful to be fat? South Pacific nations, that's a good sign if you're fat. So, Sophie, you don't know why Australia let the UK use nukes when the UK didn't help. Well, I don't think that's how people saw it, but why Australia let nuclear tests be done in the desert? Because the Australian culture at the time was very slavish to our UK overlords. Okay, I hate getting bogged down in semantics, but a lot of people argue that racism means institutional racism, not just bigotry. Everyone has bigotry. Every ethnic group, every subculture group, every country, no matter how you want to slice and dice things, bigotry exists everywhere. Some people like to argue that racism means institutional racism, which means there's a system in place that favors one race over the other. And this is why you will often get people in Australia, the US, Britain saying you can't be racist against white people, because there is no power structure that lets you persecute people because of their whiteness, and anyone who says otherwise is full of shit. But bigotry definitely exists, and it's it's not just like okay, white people have this long history of racism towards these other races. So those people are bigoted towards white people. Some of them are, yeah, but you get cross bigotry, like say, Japanese hating Koreans, Koreans hating Japanese, Japanese hating Chinese, Chinese hating Japanese, and other divisions through Southeast Asia, divisions between African countries, divisions between the Middle East and African countries. So you get that bigotry everywhere. So I'm a bit more comfortable talking about bigotry exists everywhere. Prejudice, like literally prejudging someone, exists everywhere. But because a lot of people want to define racism as meaning institutional racism, which I don't think is completely helpful. But yeah, if you keep it simple and just say, does bigotry exist everywhere? Does prejudice exist everywhere? Yeah, fuck yeah, definitely does. I could do a variation of this widow's kiss with Applejack and Benedictine and use ochre gold instead of yellow chartreuse and some bitters. I'm going to look through these Irish whiskey cocktails again because I found some really good Irish whiskey cocktails on this site. Irish whiskey is underrated, I think, as a cocktail ingredient. I love the name of this one, the Psycho Killer. I reckon I'm going to make this, but it's got Campari, and fuck Campari. I'll use my ochre bitter. So there's 2 shots of Irish whiskey, 3/4 of a shot of the Campari. They say cocoa nib infused Campari, which I don't have that, but I'll do half a shot of the ochre, half a shot of banana liqueur, half a shot of white creme de cacao, and 2 dashes of absinthe. Wait, I made that, didn't I? I did actually make that. Didn't I? Did I? What did I just talk about? I feel like I made it. So Australia, US bromance health since Kokoda. Actually, there was a lot of antipathy to Americans that came out of the Second World War and US service people in Australia. And it was the Australians, in fact, it was Australian reservists who held back the advancing Japanese army on the Kokoda Trail. The Americans had lost to them repeatedly in the South Pacific, and it wasn't till the Australians started to drive the Japanese army back, which was the first time that particular army had been beaten in like a decade. Then the US joined in because, we got them on the run, let's join in. Look at Trooper, would I call out an Asian guy or a black guy for being racist? Again, if, let's say, bigoted, in line with what I was saying before, and yes, I will speak out against bigotry from anyone. If someone's being unreasonable and bigoted and hateful, I will call them out, and I don't care who they are, or particularly if they want to claim I'm an oppressed group and therefore I can't do anything bad. I'll be like, no, fuck you. If someone is expressing hate and bigotry, I'm going to speak out on it, and no matter what. So I think the Australian love affair with the US started quite a bit after the Second World War, like into the 50s and 60s. And we started to move our allegiance slowly from the UK to the US. And by the time the Vietnam War came along, we were slavishly following the US into a stupid war. And yes, Aussie Gun Bunny, I think Talking Heads might like that drink, the Psycho Killer. I swear I made it, though. Did I make that on a live stream, or did I just talk about making it? What's in a Tipperary? Irish whiskey, green chartreuse. Ooh, this is a challenge. The Tipperary has Irish whiskey, green chartreuse, and sweet vermouth, and they say chartreuse fans will love this serious drink. The uninitiated will hate it. Hey, I'm not a wuss. You can't scare me. What is this? 1.5 shots of Irish whiskey, half shot of green chartreuse, 1 shot of sweet vermouth, third shot chill water. That's easy. Actually, I would like that. I've got green chartreuse. In fact, I've almost run out. Gonna have to buy some more booth. Need some more green chartreuse. This is adapted from a recipe which first appeared in a 1916 book, Recipes for Mixed Drinks. And he said equal parts. Well, that would be wild. Equal parts whiskey, chartreuse, and vermouth would be pretty wild. By the time Harry Craddock published his 1930 Savoy cocktail book, recipe returned to equal parts. Third version based on sloe gin. Most modern recipes, including ours, lean towards Harry Macalone's 1922 recipe, which is heavier on the Irish whiskey. Yes. So this is a 100-year-old drink. I should make this. This is like a 100-year-old drink. Hey, Petit Wallaby, and hey, Feeling Sealer. How long did it take to get movie and analog reels to Australia back in the day? Logistically, well, I mean, yeah, we had flights. God, in the days when it was by boat, that was months. Once we had flights, that's only days. But up until recently, like the 80s, the release schedule, we could wait months, if not a year, for a film or a TV show from the US to be shown in Australia. Oh no, Bitty Wallaby woke up stupidly early because of indigestion. On the plus side, we get to hang out. How stupidly early is it? That's all. That sounds bad. Okay, I am going to make this Tipperary cocktail because I can. It's a stirred drink. Okay, I've got my stirrer. I should put some ice in it. Oh, and I'm going to chill a coupe. Okay. Put a coupe in the freezer. Oh, move a couple of things. You go in there. Put some ice. It's a long way to Tipperary. Okay, put another one. Let's do this. Okay, another block of ice. And it's going to go in a coupe. Well, I've got to get my jigger. Where did I put my jigger? It's over here. And yes, I said jigger. Don't try and cancel me. Felt awkward enough talking about Negronis and white Negronis. God, slip of the lip here could have you cancelled, couldn't it? It's a very dodgily named drink. Yeah, I agree with it. Stupidly early for Saturday. I like to sleep in on weekends. Oh yeah, Lex Strip, we can agree and disagree. I'm perfectly happy with agreement and disagreement as long as the disagreement isn't bigotry. Like if someone says like, "Oh, I think all the queers should be killed," that's not a disagreement. That person's the scum of the earth, and I fucking hate them. Okay, I'm not going to be civil with someone who says something vile and bigoted. But if someone feels a different way about a situation, I'll make my views really quite forcefully known. But it doesn't have to be anything beyond an open and frank exchange of views. Gollywogs are still around, Luke. Even they're very racist. Safi, you're doing a Midori Splice, vodka, rum, pineapple scone. Was that a premix from the bottle-o? Premix from the bottle-o. All right. Now, how much green chartreuse do you want to have left? I think it's almost gone. It should be here somewhere. Here it is. There is not much green chartreuse at all. This is my excuse. Running out of booze. I know I bought this sometime last year, so we're going, God, you're a pisser. Did you drink the whole bottle? I don't know when I bought this, sometime last year, before I kept a ledger of what I was buying. But I will buy it because I like having, it's a very herby sort of drink. It's got a very interesting flavor. Phil and Sheila, do I have a favorite cocktail that commemorates a famous event? No. My favorite cocktail is like a whiskey sour. And I mean, I've come across dozens and dozens of cocktails that I really like, but not one that I would say commemorates a famous event. And what was the other ingredient? I forgetsies. What else is it? It's vermouth, isn't it? Okay. It says sweet, but I'll use my classic Maiden Eye vermouth. Quality Australian vermouth. Half a shot of this. No, a full shot. Full shot of the vermouth. Okay. Alrighty. Full shot of vermouth. And we stir that. What's true? Who would I vote for in the next? There's no election in 2020. The US are having an election 2020, 2022. Okay. There's a difference between who I'd vote for and who I want to be in government. I obviously want the LNP out. The Greens won't and can't form government, but they can apply pressure to Labor. So if you were in a seat where the Greens were a viable chance, maybe vote for them. But if it's just down to, Liberal versus Labor or Labor versus the LNP, I Labor 100%. So that's what I'd say. Well, what did you find, Addie? It was the best scent ever. Trying to work out what incense stick. Ooh, smells like pink musk lollies. Nice. I was thinking, when you're saying Arnott sells different stuff. I've heard that too. Arnott's biscuits are different in different states. Ginger nut biscuits are different depending what state you're in, which is super weird, honestly. God, I can't even be bothered getting my strainer. I'm just going to use the spoon to keep the ice out of this. Get my coupe that I chilled for a bit. While I'm up, I might as well put the vermouth back in the fridge. Okay. Come here, glass. Okay. Okie dokie doo. Is my household a Labor household? My household's a progressive household. So my household's an anti-LNP household. So, yeah. Oh, Luke, you reckon iced coffee tastes different in Victoria and South Australia? Well, they're different makers, aren't they? Vidovic Arts, hello to you. How's it going, buddy? You have expensive tastes. Your favorite incense is oud wood. I do not really know much about incense. Pound for pound, more valuable than gold. Oh, there you go. All right, so this is a Tipperary cocktail. So I don't think I've ever made this before. Ooh, well, that's pretty good. It's very boozy because there's nothing but booze in it. It's funny because it's like 1.5 shots of the Irish whiskey and only half a shot of the green chartreuse. But the herbal nature of the green chartreuse really comes through. Ooh, yeah, it's not bad. I wouldn't have it every night. Um, mm. But I like to have a bit of a variety in drinks. Oh God, Visible Chicken. What it makes your mum's progressive, brother's apathetic, dad's racist and transphobic. Yeah, I think my mum was very sort of open and accepting. My dad was a racist, homophobe, dickhead. See, I'm that old that transphobic wasn't even a thing when I was growing up because uh, trans issues weren't front and center. It was very poorly understood. Um, but my dad was definitely homophobic as fuck. I think he thought I was gay, which would be because I didn't have a girlfriend at school and because I didn't play football. And I didn't have a girlfriend because Catholic guilt was working too well on me. I also was did not have a lot of confidence when I was at school. So the whole Catholic guilt thing worked too well on me. And I didn't play football because I was actually just really shit at sport, and I also didn't want to get my head kicked in. And I think in my dad's head that made me gay. So he's really surprised when I brought a girl home from college one time. Still every day. Okay, I think that's a bullshit line. Well, for a start, my dad's been dead for 3 decades. But I'm that can actually make me very angry when someone says to someone who was and I wasn't abused by my parents, but my dad was a fucking racist, homophobic dick and an alcoholic. But I get really shitty at people who say to someone who was abused by their parents, a parent or both parents, say, but they're your parents. You've got to love them. Fuck that noise. Fuck that to hell. I don't think love is an automatic thing. You know, people earn love. Like I said, it's not my case, but if you want to get me really angry, just say to someone who was abused by a parent or a sibling that you have to still love them because they're your family. Get fucked. Get absolutely fucked. That the whole idea of you owe someone something just because you're related to them is complete and utter horseshit. People get respect and or love based on what they do, not who they are. So does the Catholic Church try to control people? They certainly do. Eddie, you had the cops do that to you one time. Yeah. Cops are usually pretty bad at handling things like that. Yeah, another part of their training that should be better. But yes. Yeah, Eddie, if you're in a situation of continuing abuse, you can't sort out past trauma. Yeah, I get very angry at people who suggest like, oh, you've got to forgive them because they're your family. I was like, do you really? No. Yeah, Invisible Chicken, I can understand that. A difficult relationship with your dad because the emotional abuse causes mental health troubles. It's fucked. And man, I copped way less shit than most of my siblings. I come from a very big family, and most of my siblings had a much more combative relationship with my dad than I did. But for me, I just kind of left it behind. But yeah. Oh gosh, Addie. Okay, as your mum called the cops saying you should be sectioned just because you didn't want to live with her. Oh God. Yeah, yeah, I can see that confusing the cops. Yeah. Ooh, feeling silly. You're the youngest of 9. I'm one of 10. And I'm the 8th of 10. The sister's Australian because she's batshit crazy and burned bridges. Yeah, if someone does shit, yeah, the idea of forgiving them, like, pretending it never is usually going to fucking hurt you. Carrying a grudge won't help you either. But the idea that they should get off scot-free is kind of bullshit. Aussie gone, buddy. That kind of sums it up. My parents' generation, everyone was racist to some degree because it's just the way things were. Which is weird. Okay, because when I say my dad was racist as fuck, he also had Aboriginal friends or people that he would have said were his friends, people that he was friendly with. But he was still super fucking racist. My dad was a boxer. He worked at the Police Boys Club, which it kind of means something to you if you're from the country, particularly for my generation. And there were a lot of Aboriginal boxers in that time in Australia. And that's where he met guys who he was friendly with. But yeah, so you do get this weird thing of racists having friends or being friendly towards or claiming they have friends who are of the ethnic group they're racist towards. As like violent misogynists being married and saying they're in love and, being loving to their partner while at the same time being horrifically misogynist. Humans are weird like that. Oh yeah, music over there. These days it's the PCYC, the Police Citizens Youth Club. When I wore lad, it was the Police Citizens Boys Club. But yes, then we let the girls in, so it's the Police Citizens Youth Club now. Yes. So does Dutton have friends? Yeah. Fuckwits hang together. Or Dutton would have people that are friendly to him, definitely. Oh, Aussie Gumman, you're right. Back in the day, racism was just the default. It was just the background noise. That's a good point, Annette. You'll often find that they'll make exceptions. Bigots will make exceptions. You're one of the good ones, and they don't realize how gross and vile and condescending that is. Oh God, you almost made me choke. If I had been drinking when I read that musical Aviator, the PCYC, or as we, an independent brass band for streets, we used to call it, the Pussy Wussy. So if girls weren't allowed in the police, well, they were allowed in there when I were a kid, so they were allowed in there in the 70s. But they didn't change the name to youth club, I think, until the late 80s. Catherine, is that where the phrase old boys club comes from? No, that's alumnus of private schools were known as the old boys, because there's the boys who were at the private school and the graduates were known as the old boys, and they looked after each other and got each other good jobs and whatnot. So the whole idea of people getting jobs based on merit was bullshit. It was about connections. That's the old boys club. Locust Trooper, I think you mean the White Australia policy, which is, just a beautiful thing that we did in Australia in the 20th century, because we're awesome like that. I'm just going to look at when that officially ended. The Immigration Restriction Act of 1901. Who stopped the White Australia? Liberal Party Prime Minister Harold Holt abolished the White Australia policy. There you go. So that was in the 60s? Fact check. Did former Prime Minister Harold Holt abolish the white Australia policy. Okay, that's interesting. ABC Fact Check says that's a simplistic interpretation. So dipshit Tim Wilson, who I really fucking don't like, Liberal MP, he said in 1966, Liberal Prime Minister Harold Holt abolished the White Australia policy. It's one of our proudest achievements. So it was apparently in response to Bob Katter's obnoxiousness. The verdict is the claim that Harold Holt withdrew the White Australia policy is simplistic. It was dismantled piece by piece over decades by both Liberal and Labor governments. The reforms made by the Holt government in 66, 67 were critical to the process. Holt's changes leveled the playing field between Europeans and non-Europeans applying for citizenship. But the process of relaxing Australia's discriminatory immigration policies quietly began before Mr. Holt became Prime Minister, and policies of racial discrimination persisted long beyond his term. So they didn't abolish it, but they did make some significant steps. It was officially ended by Gough Whitlam's Labor government, which in 1973 declared the policy dead. But so a succession of both Labor and Liberal governments took steps to progressively get rid of the White Australia policy. And Harold Holt's government did make some significant steps, but it's overly simplistic to say they abolished the white slave policy. Yeah, so for Tim Wilson's a shithead. I really don't like him. So if your mum's town's too small for PCYC, must be a fucking small town, man. Feeling too, when you were in primary in the 70s, did some crazy racist shit without knowing it. Oh yeah, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a nigger by the toe. That got changed to tiger by the toe. And the Agatha Christie had a novel published, again, under a racist children's rhyme. She had a novel published with the name 10 Little Niggers. And she's like, okay. I love the Goodies had a joke about it. They had an episode where they had all these different people playing all the famous fictional detectives. And but when they were saying it, they're going, oh, look, this is just like that book, like when people were getting killed one by one. Because that's, and I forget, there's a cleaner version of that rhyme now. 10 Little Monkeys. I think people say, which in a way is still not good, because the idea is 10 little monkeys sitting on a branch, something to that, and then there were nine little monkeys sitting on a branch, then there were 8. And in the Agatha Christie book, it's like a succession of people get murdered, and that's why she invokes the nursery rhyme. The Goodies did this thing in the 70s with all the famous fictional detectives, and when they each of them died, they go, oh, it's just like that. It's just like the nursery rhyme. 10 little, and then there were 9. It's just stuff that we just like gollywogs and blackface and minstrels. That was, that's just a thing. No, this is an horrific racist thing meant to demean black people, and it's just God. That's it. At 10 little monkeys jumping on a bed. One fell off and hit its head. So I'm sorry. I'm going to look it up and see what the original was. Google won't autocomplete it. And then there were none. Oh, okay. They renamed the Agatha Christie book, and then there were none. So they changed the names. So Apparently, okay, the plot summary. These people arrive in the coach. Each guest has an invitation. A framed copy of the nursery rhyme with the offensive title hangs in each guest room. And in later editions, it was changed to either 10 Little Indians or 10 Little Soldiers. Okay, so that's the Agatha Christie story. I want to find the okay, here's the rhyme in Wikipedia. Okay, so it was a music hall song. It was a minstrel song back in the day. Okay, so the modern lyrics are 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians. The minstrel song, 10 Little Indians, is from 1868. Yeah, 10 little Indians standing in a line, 1 toddled home, then there were 9. 9 little Indians swinging on a gate, 1 tumbled off, then there were 8. 8 little Indians, gayest under heaven. 1 went to sleep, and then there were 7. 7 little Indian cutting up their tricks, 1 broke his neck, and then there were 6. 6 little Indians all alive, 1 kicked the bucket, then there were 5. 5 little Indians on a cellar door, 1 tumbled in, then there were 4. 4 little Indians up on a spree, 1 got fuddled, and then there were 3. 3 little Indians out on a canoe, 1 tumbled overboard, then there were 2. 2 little Indians fooling with a gun, 1 shot the other, then there was 1. 1 little Indian living all alone, he got married, and then there were none. So there's lots of variants of it. Yes, and I know about 10 little monkeys jumping on the bed. 1 fell off and bumped his head. Yes. Lucas Tripper saying good night. Okay, good night. Ozinga Bunny, you're going good night? I suppose it is night time, actually. Yes. I do remember there was a lot of talk about Peter Jackson making a movie of the Dam Busters, which, again, was a real thing. It was a bomber squadron in the RAF. And if you're going to be historically accurate, the captain of the bomber had a black dog that he called Nigger. And so you're left with this, do I really want this guy who I want to be sympathetic to be calling his dog that? Or do I whitewash history? And that's a difficult question to answer, I think. Because the world is so different that it's hard to do anything but feel negatively towards someone who would call their dog that now. And the desire is not to have you feel negatively towards this guy, but is it whitewashing history to not have that on there? Ooh, this is an interesting drink. Sorry, I'm also, while having these important discussions, I'm looking at drinks. Another Irish whiskey cocktail called the Whiskey. It's a double shot of Irish whiskey, Lillet Blanc, which I don't have, but I have plenty of substitutes for it, and a little bit of an orange liqueur. Yeah, I could do that. Irish whiskey with herbal complexity and zesty orange. I could make a decent variant of that. A wild Irish rose is Irish whiskey, lemon juice, sugar syrup, grenadine, and soda. I don't know. Do I want to make another drink? Or do I want to, because it's a long weekend. So it's not just tomorrow off, it's Monday off as well. Mallory and Irvin disappeared this day. It's the Byro's birthday. Okay, that's coming up. What day is that? The 10th of June. The 10th of June. The invention of the ballpoint pen. It's named after Biro Laszlo Joseph. There you go. He noticed that newspaper ink, in contrast to fountain pen ink, dried quickly and smudge-free. Finding that the same ink was too thick to flow into the tip of a fountain pen, he worked with his brother to develop a rolling ball in a socket that would pick up ink from a cartridge and roll it onto paper. Blah! That's pretty goddamn clever of them. During the war, the brothers, who happened to be Hungarian Jews, fled to Argentina, where on this day in 1943 they filed a patent and formed biro pens of art. I often wondered why we called it a biro. I'm old enough that I grew up calling a biro a ballpoint pen. Sorry, I grew up calling a ballpoint pen a biro. It's because the first makers were named Biro. There you go. Oh, yes, Arthur, getting a pen license. That was a thing. In primary school, when your handwriting was good enough, because you had to write in pencil when your handwriting was shitty so you could rub it out easily. But when your handwriting got good enough, you got a pen license that said you could use a pen, an ink pen. So for what did they have to hide going to Argentina? They were hiding from the Nazis. Yes, Fila and Sila, today is the anniversary of D-Day. And there's a relatively boring drink suggested. The Last Word is a very well-known cocktail that they're suggesting. Oh my God. Sorry. It's also the 10th of June. This is a cocktail website saying, oh, it's the anniversary of Alcoholics Anonymous being founded. So they give you a non-alcoholic cocktail recipe. Now I'm interested in what it is. A mint limeade. So it's mint leaves, lime juice, apple juice, sugar syrup, and lemon lime soda. That actually does... That sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty darn good. So they've got a section on Wimbledon cocktails, and they're all red. Oh no, they're not all red. There we go. But they're not my type of drinks. That's okay. Candy cocktails. Oh, it's all a thing, isn't it? Invisible Chicken, you got a pen license. Oh, that's an interesting one, feeling. So if your ballpoint pen got stuck, do you used to scribble on glass to get it flowing? No, I didn't know that was the thing. I just do it really hard on paper and hope it worked. Never heard that trick of doing it on glass. Catherine, you read they were drunk when Alcoholics Anonymous was formed. Well, I could re-look it up, their story about it. Where is it? Their story about the founding of Alcoholics Anonymous. Dr. Bob Holbrook Smith, a surgeon from Akron, Ohio, took his last drink, a bottle of beer, to steady his hand before surgery. AA members around the world will be marking the occasion with a nice cup of tea, or possibly juice, maybe even coffee or energy drinks. For Dr. Bob and Bill W., they created Alcoholics Anonymous, a sometimes controversial group that has transformed the treatment of alcoholics and alcoholism around the world. They were the first to conceptualize alcoholism as an addiction or disease rather than a moral failing or weakness. And their practice of supporting each other through sobriety led to the original 12-step treatment, a method now favored by starlets around the world. That is a weird statement. And so, yeah, then they give a non-alcoholic cocktail. Yeah. And yes, Alcoholics Anonymous is controversial. There is no doubt about that. The way that they tie everything up with religious sensibility is not to my taste. But yeah, I don't know. You know, it works for some people, but then there's some people who argue that Alcoholics Anonymous is no more effective at helping people get over alcohol abuse than, not going to Alcoholics Anonymous? Safa, which alcohol is stronger, Australian or British? That's too broad a question to answer. Alcohol is a pretty broad brush. I don't think either is stronger. I think Australian and English beers are comparable, and I think the wines and spirits are comparable. There is a stereotype that American beers are weaker than Australian and British beers. I don't know enough about beer to know if that's true, but I think it is. I think very popular American beers are lower alcohol content than popular Australian and English beers. Look at this. What this thing are the best 7 cocktails, or the 7 greatest cocktails of all time? An old fashioned, a Manhattan. I like both of those. A martini, a daiquiri, a Negroni, a margarita. Why is an espresso martini in there? That's bullshit. Espresso martinis are trendy shit. I only say that because I don't like coffee. Acting as if there's some objective truth to that, and it's really just, I don't like coffee. I wonder who made up the intervention thing. Let's look it up. See if we who invented interventions. What does that turn up? Dr. Vernon Johnson. The use of interventions originated in the 1960s with Dr. Vernon Johnson. The Johnson model was subsequently taught years later at the Johnson Institute, focuses on creating a confrontation between a group of supporters and the addict in order to expose the addict to the consequences of their action. There you go. There was actually a really simple answer. Dr. Vernon Johnson invented the concept of interventions. There you go. Adele, you're a fan of the espresso martini. I've got to do my experiments with chocolate, like with really high cacao hot. Well, it won't be hot, but I'll make a hot chocolate and then chill it and use that as a substitute for coffee in a couple of cocktails, because I really don't fucking like coffee. Yeah, Safa, I find the ins and outs of cocktails really interesting, and I'm still an absolute noob. Like, if I was like Zingy bartender, I'd instantly, there'd be like at least a dozen core cocktails that I'd just be able to make without even looking at a recipe for them. And okay, I'll try and read out the things that I think, if you were like a gun bartender, things you should just be able to make. And I can make some of them without looking up ingredients, but not me. There would be like an old fashioned, a whiskey sour, all the variants of a martini, a daiquiri, a mojito, a Manhattan, a Negroni. What did I said? Daiquiri, mojito. What's margarita? That was the one I was trying to think of. A sidecar. What would be another basic one? I think I said all the ones that were on that list. Old-fashioned, Manhattan, martini, daiquiri, Negroni, margarita. Yeah. Okay, the world's top 100. This ought to be fun. They're saying, okay, these are the most popular on the Difford site. Number 1 is the Porn Star Martini, most visited cocktail on the Difford's Guide for 5 years. Well, that's stupid. What's a porn star martini? Passion fruit, vodka, passion fruit liqueur, vanilla syrup, lime juice, and champagne. Ugh. Why is that the most popular? That's stupid. Just because of its name, I think. Porn star. Okay, an amaretto sour. Espresso martini, dry martini, Negroni, margarita, French martini. See, it's just another gin basil smash. I don't think that's a default, but that's just gin with basil in, I think. Oh god, an 80s one, the slow, comfortable screw against the wall. Oof. Bloody Mary, yeah, you should have. I guess if you're going to be a gun bartender, you'd have a version of a Bloody Mary. Manhattan, a dirty banana. The fuck is a dirty banana? Which apparently Harry Styles likes, and that's why it's popular. So that's Bacardi Gold, a coffee liqueur, banana liqueur, cream, and milk. And God, that's okay. It's probably not gross, but once you start adding milk and cream into cocktails, and you a snowball. It's a Christmas drink, apparently. So you don't, but that's not a default one. That's not one of the. Snowball is lemonade, lime juice, and advocaat. Okay, that's just a pretend drink. That's virtually not alcoholic. Feeling my own preference, taste versus strength. My favorite cocktails are a whiskey sour and a sidecar. But I keep finding ones I like. Yeah, and who's Harry Styles? Oh my God, you're my age. That's the problem. Harry Styles is in One Direction, very popular pop star for the last 10 years. So if you want the job as a professional cocktail tester, I can see that. So okay, a lot of these. Okay, a white lady is a classic. That's a gin martini. Screaming orgasm. That's just a trendy one. A hand grenade. What the fuck is a hand grenade? Gin, rum, vodka, melon liqueur, and pineapple. Okay, it's a hand grenade because it's Jesus. It's a lot of fucking alcohol in it. Cantaritos. It's an obscure tequila drink. What is a Cantaritos? I've never heard of that. Reposado tequila, orange juice, pink grapefruit juice, lime juice, salt and grapefruit soda. And without the soda, I could make that. It's just tequila and fruit juices. It's kind of when people put a lot of fruit juice in, I think they're cheating. But I don't think that's one. Okay, a penicillin, that's a classic. I think people are expected to know penicillin. That's one I'd have to look up. That's that's right, ginger, scotch and ginger liqueur, and honey syrup and lemon juice. Okay. I think if you were like a gun bartender, you'd be expected to know how to make penicillin. Maybe a Vieux Carré, that's a classic. That's bourbon and cognac and Benedictine and vermouth. So that's a slightly complicated drink, but it's a classic. So I think you'd kind of be expected to know it. Corpse Reviver, you definitely should have a Corpse Reviver in your repertoire. A Long Island iced tea, yes. A Bramble, yes. That's like gin and blackberry. Limoncello spritz, that's just fucking limoncello and soda. A anything mule. When someone says mule, that means it's ginger beer. The most famous is the Moscow Mule, and that's vodka and ginger beer. So a Mexican mule is just going to be tequila and fucking ginger beer. Ooh, Trinidad Sour up to number 26. I made that in a video a little while ago. That's like normally Angostura bitters is a couple of dashes. That's actually 1.5 shots of Angostura bitters, which is actually surprisingly okay. But as I found, if you make it with Peychaud's bitters, which is a different style of bitters, tastes much better. Paloma is another Mexican one that's quite popular, which I guess you'd kind of be expected to know. Paloma's tequila, grapefruit juice, lime juice, and agave, topped with grapefruit syrup. I guess you'd be... A Paper Plane's a classic. You'd probably be expected to know that. Bourbon and an Amaro, an Aperol, and lemon juice. So that's bourbon with a couple of bitter additives in it. The Last Word, I think, is another classic that you might be expected to know. Gin and chartreuse and maraschino and lime juice. There's lots of variants of that one. Cosmo. Ooh. Okay. Sorry, I just always think that. Okay, so here's a name you should know. Cosmo. Cosmopolitan. A Mai Tai. An Aviation. Ramos Gin Fizz. But yeah. Safa, do I like passion fruit? I like the flavor passion fruit. Like I've got a passion fruit liqueur over there, and I've got a passion fruit syrup in the fridge for making cocktails. But actual passion fruits, like the seeds, gross me out. Like when you've got, like, you know, people will put passion fruit on a pavlova, and the seeds are there. I just hate the idea you're going and crunch the seeds between your teeth. It's like you're crunching a bug. It's really gross. I dislike it intensely. It's not good at all. But the flavor of passion fruit, I mean, and the passion fruit liqueur I have over here is quite nice. But yeah, the passion fruit itself with the seeds is dodgy. I was looking up these drinks. What's this? An Aqua Velva. Blue Curacao. What's a blue drink? All blue drinks have blue Curacao. I don't have any blue Curacao. Maybe I should get some blue Curacao just so I can make blue drinks. It's just vodka, gin, and blue Curacao topped with like lemonade or lemon lime. A Boulevardier. That's one that a bartender should probably know. That's an old classic. It's pretty straightforward. It's basically like a Negroni with whiskey instead of gin. So it's whiskey, sweet vermouth, and a bitter red liqueur. Sex on the Beach. That's another gross 80s one. Vodka sour. Oh, a Vespa. The James Bond fucking martini that I made a little while ago. That's absolutely, if you make it with James Bond measurements, it's absolutely deadly because it's like 3 shots of fucking gin and 1 shot of vodka and half a shot of vermouth. It's a lot of alcohol in a Vespa. If someone makes a full-blown Vespa, there's a lot of alcohol in that. Kind of glad I'm not a bartender, actually. It's too much pressure on bartenders. Ooh, what's sarsaparilla? Oh, God, Addie, you love the texture. You love crunching up the passion fruit seeds? That's gross. I'm just thinking, does anyone want to join in? I share the link. I'm tossing up between keeping going and going to bed. But if people want to join in, I'll share the link and we can chat away. Sarsaparilla, that's a good question. Feeling sealer. Sarsaparilla. What is sarsaparilla? Originally made from Smilax ornata and other plants, now sometimes made with artificial ingredients. What does sarsaparilla taste like? If you like root beer, you'll like sarsaparilla. A distinct medicinal bite with notes of vanilla, caramel, wintergreen, and licorice. My memory of sarsaparilla is not liking it. So have I ever smoked cigarettes? I've never been a smoker. As a teenager, I took some puffs, but I do. Okay, you've taken painkillers. Okay. Catherine, your brainwave, a flaming mo of The Simpsons, but the medicine you use is pink liquid amoxicillin, the dregs of every liquor bottle, and then a dash of amoxicillin, and then set it on fire. It's actually slightly difficult to set alcohol on fire. In general terms, to easily set alcohol on fire, it needs to be over 50%. So when a lot of spirits are commonly 40%, if you heat them up, it's easier to set them on fire. I read the physics or chemistry of that at some point, but if an alcohol is lower than 50% alcohol, if you heat it up, it's easier to set it on fire. But to very easily set alcohol on fire, it has to be over 50% alcohol. So is root beer the same as ginger beer? I don't know. I don't like that. Is root beer ginger beer? That auto completed. Root beer is non-alcoholic. Non-alcoholic tastes like ginger ale, with less sugar and a bit of bite. There you go. So it is saying root beer does taste like ginger beer. Yeah, it'd be the root of a different plant, I guess. Deaf beer for me. I could do it a little shake, like again with. I've got my clarified whiskey sour in there. If I shake that up, that looks like a little beer. And like if I pour it into this glass, it looks like a little beer. I always think of the Duff World ride, their version of It's a Small World, with their little things like, Duff beer for me, Duff beer for you, I'll have a Duff, you have one too. And Lisa drinking the water and hallucinating is one of my fond Simpsons memories. Have I heard of a flaming bob? I have not. There are a lot of flaming cocktails in the world. Probably the most famous is called the Blue Blazer. But there are a few flaming cocktails down the world. Ooh, a Sazerac. Thinking of, I'm going to do a milk clarified Sazerac because I did a whiskey sour. Yeah, I'm going to do a Sazerac. Put it in the fridge. Something to do with the Church of the Subgenius. God, Safa, would Homer be an alcoholic? That's like asking, is Homer fat? Yes, Homer is an alcoholic. Okay. Oh, we got flaming bob cocktail. I'll just add Subgenius after it. Okay, there's this one where they just Bob Marley shots because it's the Rasta flag colors, green, yellow, and red in a layered shot. So when I look up Flaming Bob, they're all Flaming Bob Marleys. So I'm not finding one related to the Church of the Subgenius. Oh, feelings. Yeah, there are a lot of copyrighted and trademarked cocktails. I don't know exactly how you enforce that, but there are a lot of copyrighted and trademarked cocktails. Zafa, at a blind guess, I'd agree with you there. Root beer is more popular in the US and ginger beer is more popular in the UK. And ginger beer is more popular in Australia. Like, you literally do not get root beer in Australia. You do get ginger beer and ginger ale, though, both the alcoholic and non-alcoholic versions. And you famously get Greens ginger wine. No, Stone's green ginger wine, which is an alcoholic ginger drink. It's very popular with roadies on the rock and roll circuit. Stone's green ginger wine. I didn't like ginger really as a flavor. Oh, Annette, the gothy computer nerds you hung out in the 90s drank Flaming Bobs all the time. There you go. Well, they've been lost in folklore. Maybe if I went past the first page of Google results, I'd see them. But who really wants to go past the first page of Google results? Okay, I'm going to get, before I go to bed, I'm going to make a Sazerac and milk clarify it. I'm going to make a version of a Sazerac anyway. Oh God, Annette, your ex used to drink Stone's with lager. Stone's green ginger wine with beer. Good Lord. Something about that just seems very weird to me. Yeah, put this ice in here for now. Want this for mixing. Another one to put the milk in. All right, I gotta rinse my jigger. That's what she said. Okay, where is my management? I want this. Okay. All right. Okay, I'll put some milk in this. So work out the volumes I'm going to be working with. Look at this Sazerac recipe. So, God, there's a lot of chilled water in that. So cognac, bourbon, sugar syrup, Peychaud's bitters. Okay, so I'm going to have to add a juice to this. I might do grapefruit juice because I've got to think of grapefruit juice. Peychaud's and Angostura. Okay, I'm going to go to fucking town with this. So I do 1 shot absinthe. I do 2 shots of brandy and 3 shots of bourbon. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I'm going to get a bit creative here. Suffer. The angry kids borrow the angry tricks. Young Ms. Angry is usually not interested at all in the alcoholic beverages. And young Mr. Angry will occasionally have a drink. He often has his own. And sometimes I will mix him a drink. And it's usually a comparatively low alcohol thing. Like I'll mix a highball basically, so it's got lemonade and or juice in it. Whereas I don't have highballs that often. My drinks are usually mostly booze and maybe just a little bit of fruit juice and sugar syrup. Ooh, Eddie, you're going to mix some eucalyptus oil into your lavender neck rub to sleep tonight. That sounds like me. Oh yeah, I hate having to sleep when you can't breathe because you got a cold, let alone, yes, pulling your neck from sneezing. Jesus. Yeah. I hate it when you can't breathe when you're trying to sleep. All right. I'm going to mix this up. So, okay, I got to work this out. If I'm going to do a Sazerac, we're going to do 1 shot of absinthe, 1 shot of brandy, say 3 shots of bourbon, 1 shot of sugar syrup. So that would be 2 ounces of milk. Yeah, I'll put 2 ounces of grapefruit juice in as well, and that should be enough to curdle the milk. All right, I'm going to do this. Okay, so first I will just get some milk ready. I'm going to rinse it again. Mix all my booze. Mix all my booze. Okay, milk, lemonade, round the corner chocolate made. Oh, I used to do that when I was a little kiddie. We're weird as kids. We get this fixation with bodily functions. Oh, and with you, Sappho, humidity is not good if you're having trouble breathing. Now, we're just getting into winter here, so the just winter chill can particularly block your nose. I don't really have allergies, so it's more a winter thing for me. All right, so I got to get some sugar syrup. Try and use this one up. I'm going to do a new experiment with sugar syrup that I found recently. I might do it tomorrow. I don't know if I want to make a video about it or not. Right. I'm just going to put answer the sugar syrup in. Right. I'll put that's the question I've got to ask the very knowledgeable Kirsten if there is an Australian brandy, a good Australian brandy. Because I don't know the answer to that, actually. And if anyone's going to know, Kirsten's going to know. All right. This will be fun again because this is just going to be an absolutely murky color when I finish. It's going to be absolutely murky, like would be a very visually unappealing cocktail. But milk clarifier, and the color's probably going to be heaps better. So put that in. So I've put brandy. I've put absinthe. What was I supposed to put in? I should know this. Just doubly, triply, quadruply check. Brandy, absinthe, and bourbon. That's it. Okay. All right. I'll put some bourbon in. Ooh, almost used up the bourbon, and then my excuse was going to be to get an Australian whiskey to replace it. Just because. And Kirsten's the brand rep for an Australian whiskey, so she's going to point me to the right one. Bitters. Good. Put some ruby red grapefruit juice in. Grapefruit juice. And now we shake it in some bitters. Some Creole bitters. That's probably enough Creole bitters. And some Angostura bitters. Oh, gross. Safa, when did I last drink Foster's? Like, not ever. Beer is gross. I've never liked beer. Oh, wow. That's interesting, Invisible Chicken. I love that. All 50 US states and 18 countries around the world participated in protests. That is good news. Double check the contents: absinthe, brandy, whiskey, sugar syrup, bitters. Okay. So, okay, look, check this. It's just like a fucking brown to green black color in here. It's going to be very interesting. Again, this will probably be orange. When it filters, it will probably be orange. But it will be interesting to see. The blue coloring, and it is just a coloring, it's not natural, in the absinthe might actually make the end product blue or green. But it'll be interesting. I'm going to see. So pour that into the milk. So you pour that into milk, it curdles straight away. Kind of looks like chocolate milk. Chocolate or caramel milk. Not all that appealing. I love it. That is not very appealing, honestly. I'll leave that sit for 5 or 10 minutes because it's curdling straight away, which is the result that we want, the result that I want. I notice I'm not the only one who does it of the YouTube cocktail channels, but I notice when I'm adding things, I always say we add, because the idea is I think that people are doing it along with me. So I'm like, okay, we add 30 mils of whiskey, and we also add 30 mils of gin, and which is a slightly weird speech affectation to have, to say we are going to do something when it's I who is doing something. But it is what it is. And I still say and ah a lot, and I try not to. See, and I just did it then, while I'm actually consciously thinking of not umming and ahhing. I erred while I was thinking. That is, I have actually learned the technique, and the main technique is to not rush when you're talking, to not feel like you have to fill in every space, because that's what and ah is. It's the feeling that you can't be silent. So when you are thinking of the next word, instead of silently thinking of the next word, you fill in the gap with So I think I did quite a few sentences there without accidentally saying or but that required a lot of focus. And also, it does require you to speak in a fairly unnatural way, because I don't think we plan our speaking that far in advance, unless you're literally reading from a speech. So you say a few words, you say a sentence, you say a couple of sentences, and then you have to think of what the next thing is. And if you're going to avoid saying and ah, you have to train yourself quite hard. And the big thing is being confident that leaving a silence of a second or even a couple of seconds isn't a bad thing. It's perfectly okay for there to be these pauses, and that's better than saying or ah. But I get really lazy and don't focus. So does Mrs. Angry have different alcohol taste? Yeah, she doesn't like whiskey at all, whereas I'm reasonably fond of whiskey cocktails. See, there you go. I was relaxing and I said straight. As soon as I relaxed, I said and I just did it again. As soon as I relax, twice a sentence, I'll go or ah. And Mrs. Angry did it again. Mrs. Angry likes gin. She likes gin more than I do. We have a couple of drinks in common that we like a lot, but she doesn't like whiskey drinks at all. I like boozier cocktails than she does. Mrs. Angry will usually prefer something that breaks up the booze, like fruit juice or sugar syrup or something like that. And I like stuff with fruit juice or sugar syrup, but I like boozy cocktails more than Mrs. Angry does. Addy, they should be teaching that in schools, better than learning about subjective and irrational writing rules. What, the ah thing? Is that it? Yes, Felix, I'm not a newsreader. I actually have a teleprompt app on my phone, and I've never used it because I almost never write out scripts for my videos. I think in my head what I'm going to say, but I almost never write scripts. If I do write scripts and I can't be bothered putting on the teleprompter, you'll be able to tell because there is a lot of edits in the video. If I'm really focusing in on a subject and I want to be really sure I hit the points, I'll write a script. I don't do it very often, but you can tell when I've done that because there will be lots of edits because I'll memorize only 1 or 2 sentences and I'll say that 1 or 2 sentences to camera, and then I'll go back to the script and go, okay, and then do the next couple of sentences to camera and then look at the script again. So if you ever see one of my angry videos that has lots of edits, that almost always means it was really tightly scripted. Whereas my more rambling ones, I write notes down and I write points and say, remember to say that, remember to say that, remember to say, and I have that under the camera, just bullet points. And then I usually forget half the bullet points and kick myself afterwards, but I'm too lazy to go back and do it again. All right. I am now gonna, oh God, that is, I swear this milk clarification looks so gross. Need a funnel. Funnel. Yeah, that one will do. So we've got a funnel. And I want a coffee filter. Like, no one in the house drinks coffee, but I have coffee filters because I use it for filtering my beverages and have for a number of years. Like the milk clarification is new, but I often infuse things into spirits and have to, or choose to, filter out stuff to make it clearer. And he's saying it's a useful skill, the and ah thing. Yes, and have confidence, feel comfortable. That's the big thing. You have to feel comfortable with silence. Silence scares people when they're speaking. Most people have a problem with that. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Addie. It's not necessarily anxiety with all people, but it makes people anxious to not be, if you're presenting to people, if you're making a speech, even if it isn't a formal speech, you're just telling people something. Silences are really confronting. You have to be comfortable with silence because if you are talking to a group, if you are making a presentation or making a speech, a silence of just 1 second feels like forever. It feels so long. But to a listening audience, it's a second. It's gone. But when you are the one, if you are anxious at all, if you are even slightly challenged in confidence, silence of a second is so daunting. It feels like forever. But it's the big thing you have to be. You have to be comfortable with silence because it makes your speech much better. Okay, so the first part of this is like gross as fuck. So it's still coming out of brown green. I can see I'm going to have to do this more than once, but that's okay. Try that. Okay, you go in there. Did I tell you that Mrs. Angry is keeping the curds, or I'm keeping the curds for Mrs. Angry for cooking? She used curds she'd saved up, or I'd saved up from a couple of milk clarifications on a bread and butter pudding she made. It's like a specialty of hers. She makes a really yummy bread and butter pudding, and you have some egg in that, and she whipped the curds up with the egg. Don't think you could really taste it because you got the other tasty things, like she put some sultana or currants in there. It's very yummy, and it's but it's fun to incorporate, because when she put it in a cake, I felt like I could taste it in the cake. It was just this really subtle sort of boozy note in the cake, which was really nice. Not like you get like some Christmas puddings that will be really heavy on the rum or the brandy, and it wasn't that full on, but it was really nice. So, Addie, you feel like you talk too fast when you give speeches. Most people, really a significant majority of people, talk too fast when they're giving speeches, because everyone gets freaked out about pauses and slowing down. That is one of the most common hang-ups people have when they're speaking or presenting, talking too fast. And doing YouTube videos, I had to be really conscious of that myself. You can say, I wonder where the origins of bottoms up see. I think that's pretty straight. I'm making a big assumption, but it's the bottom of your glass. You go, bottoms up. I feel very confident in saying that's the origin of bottoms up. That seems very evident to me. I did a big asterisk next to that, because often stuff that seems obvious, that turns out not to be the case. But to me, that seems very clear and direct. Bottoms up would mean the bottom of your glass is up, because you go, yeah, that sort of thing. Hang on for 1 second. I just have to check something. Okay, now I just had, oh shit, a brick. That was almost a disaster. This one is coming out very brown. Again, stuff always looks darker on screen than it is in real life. This is still more amber, and that's like really opaque on the screen. It's quite translucent. I think I will put this through a couple of times to see how light I can get it. Feels silly. You want Mimsy? I don't know where Mimsy is. That wasn't what I was just doing. I wasn't just going to get Mimsy. I don't actually know where she is. Good question, though. I have to admit, it was super weird to me the last couple nights when Mimsy more or less demanded to come in here. There's a sliding door over there, and a paw came under it trying to pull it open. And it's like, oh, you actually want to be in? And then she came up and was part of the show. And it's like, okay, previous times I almost had to force yon Mimsy into coming in and being part of the show. But for whatever reason, she took it upon herself to insert herself into the live stream the last couple of nights. God, and speaking of inserting themselves into the live stream, I have not heard from Aidsy for days, and he's not responding to messages. That's starting to get a little concerning, because that often means he's in hospital. So, and I'm always really hesitant to phone him, because sleep is a very important thing that he lacks. He just, from the chronic pain, he can't sleep. So he'll go days and days without any meaningful sleep. And so I feel really guilty at the concept that, God, what if just at the moment I call him, he's having his first decent sleep in days, and I disrupt that. And I've told him that I said, I don't like to call you because of that fear of disrupting what little sleep you get. So I want you to call me, because if you don't call me, I start to assume something's wrong. And he hasn't responded to messages for a couple of days. So I'm starting to get a little bit concerned. I might actually call him on the telephone tomorrow to see if, although he should answer messages. He always answers messages. So yeah, I'm starting to be a little concerned, because this often means he's in hospital if he doesn't respond at all. On the plus side, we were super worried about him having to go into hospital with COVID outbreaks because his immune system is so fucked. But we've got the fucking COVID things under control. I would have believed we would get COVID under control to the extent we did. It's mind-blowing. I thought we would be as fucked up as the US and the UK are. But, you know, us in New Zealand, so, yeah, if AIDSy has gone to hospital, at least we don't have that worry. So Invisible Chicken protests were in the US, Japan, France, England, Germany, Australia, South Korea, South Africa, Iceland, New Zealand, Italy, Canada, Ireland, Poland, Denmark, Sudan, Brazil, Netherlands, Israel. So good. I had to admit, I had a fucking giggle that one of the news agencies was reporting that both Iran and North Korea had criticized the US for the authoritarian behavior, which is fucking hilarious. I mean, it's, you know, it's throwing shade, as the kids say, but it's also valid. And there's something very darkly humorous about Iran and North Korea denouncing totalitarian behavior in the US. They're not wrong, but they also know that they're taking the piss quite severely by doing that with their own rather brutal crackdowns on their own populations. So it's sort of point scoring and dumb political bullshit, but is also quite funny. Yeah, Invisible Chicken, you're saying you were negative about the COVID projections. Like, when everything got shut down, I was talking to people who worked in hospitality. They said, how bad is it going to be? And I went, well, you got no work for 6 months. Everywhere's shut. At a best case scenario, everywhere's shut down for 6 months, no work at all. They're not going too far. And it turns out I was going too far. It was shut down for 3 months and stuff slowly starting to open. And I think we can be reasonably positive about how the next 3 to 6 months is going to be. There's so many fucking unknowns. I hesitate to predict anything, either good or bad, about what may happen in the next 3 to 6 months. But I think we can be reasonably confident of a good result. The feelings here, Kiwis think we dodged a bullet. Slightly pissed off that you had fast food. Yeah, well, you and the Kiwis had the total shutdown, but you've like literally eradicated it. We haven't eradicated it. It's still out there, but we've got it 99% under control, you know, as opposed to the, you know, like so many places around. Oh, God, yeah, we haven't done the fucking morbid look at the map thing. Let's do that. Ugh, 3 hours in. Look at the morbid map. Okay. So, which countries are totally fucked? The US. Okay. Coming up on 110,000 dead. More than a quarter of all worldwide deaths, more than a quarter of worldwide cases. So, okay, the US is fucked. Brazil is fucked. The UK is fucked. Russia is fucked. So the top 5 for cases, 4 of the top 5 are still fucking accelerating. The UK, the US, Brazil, Russia are getting worse day by day. Spain is the 5th on the Johns Hopkins list, but they leveled out a long time ago. India is fucked, I reckon. Italy was fucked and seems to have leveled out, but might end up being fucked with a subsequent wave. France was looking fucked, but leveled out. Wow, Peru's there. The fuck is happening in Peru? Almost 200,000 cases and 5,000 deaths. Ugh. Peru, why you got so many cases? Then Germany, which of the European countries got stuff under control. Iran, and I think, yeah, we can't necessarily believe any of the information out of Iran because they were seriously fucked for a long time, and then it got a bit quiet. Turkey, I don't hold out a lot of hope for. And then Chile is coming up. Mexico, Canada, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, China. Fuck knows what's going to happen in China because they locked stuff down tight. But did they? I don't know. I don't know if I believe them. Yes, and China pointing out the irony of America being totalitarian to protesters, particularly given the recent anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. And the fucking, Jesus, the trolls in the Republican Party doing a social media post commemorating the Tiananmen Square massacre, denouncing the totalitarian repression of the population. And it's going, you guys are fucking trolls. Seriously. Shameless fucking trolls. Feeling chilly, yes. Peru maybe should try coca leaves. Oh, yeah, obviously, and Peru has a problem with poverty. I have to admit, the countries that I really worry about are the US, Brazil. I think Brazil is going to be a fucking disaster. Russia, the United Kingdom, Italy. Other countries I don't know enough about, but of the top 10, I'm really worried about US, Brazil, Russia, United Kingdom, and Italy. So 5 of the top 10, to me, look like they are in like serious fucking trouble, like facing real challenges. It's true. China has less incarceration than the US. The US, I think, is the most incarcerated population, like per head of population, in the world. And of course, it's super disturbing that their system is run for profit. And there have been cases where it's been proven that judges have been deliberately funneling prisons to these for-profit prisons who are paying off the judges. The judges were imposing custodial sentences on people who should not have been sent to prison because they were getting kickbacks from the prison companies. The US system is just rotten to the fucking core. The US is a failed state. Seriously, if the US was any other country in the world, the US would be sending in troops to restore order. And in fact, they look like they're going to do it to themselves, send in the troops just in a really wrong way. But yeah, so many concerns for the US. And yeah, I've had people accuse me of wanting things to go bad for the US. I really don't, because if stuff goes spectacularly bad for the US, the knock-on effects will hit us. Plus, I have friends in the US. Plus, I'm just, I'm not that bad a person. I don't want suffering on that scale, a country with a population of hundreds of millions to collapse into ruin. I really don't want that. There are a number of reasons I don't rejoice in the idea of things being spectacularly fucked in the US. Oh, I'm going to have a late night visitor before you're going to come in, Mimsy? No, she's not going to come in. She stuck her nose in and then left. Ah, well, I was going to go to bed unless she was coming in, but she's not coming in. So I'm going to go to bed. 3 hours. That was a pretty good run for a Saturday night. All right. Thank you, wonderful people who hung out for the long haul. I hope you're having a good night. I'm filtering my Sazerac. Looks like it's going to be a very brown amber, which I'm looking forward to. I like a Sazerac. This is basically whiskey and brandy and absinthe in there. So good night and all. There's a documentary called The 13th. I haven't watched it, Invisible Chicken. There's so many things to watch, so many quality things. Anyway, good night, one and all. Look after yourselves. I hope to see you again soon. I don't know if I'll be on tomorrow. Actually, I think I probably will be on tomorrow night because Mrs. Angry has a family Zoom call with her family in the UK. So I probably will be on tomorrow night, although I can't say that for sure. But I probably won't be on a Monday night. But anyway, I'll be on tomorrow night because then Monday's a public holiday, so I can have a few drinks again. And I was seeing I had a very moderate last night, 3 drinks. Moderate night tonight. I've been well behaved, so I can maybe have a moderate night again tomorrow night. I can try my. I did the rum one that I thought would look like beer. I'll try the Sazerac tomorrow night. I'll give that a taste test with you tomorrow night with the milk clarified Sazerac. But yeah, look after yourself, one and all. You're all fabulous people. Hope to see you again soon, but I will say bye for now. Bye.